Hello friends, welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how to sketch, ink, and paint this wintry doe and fawn and birch trees in watercolor. So let's get started. If this is your first visit, my name is Aura, and on my channel I teach drawing and painting tutorials. So if you want to learn more about making art, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'm placing washi tape on my watercolor paper to help with placement, then I start sketching the doe directly on the paper. In my recent video of these whimsical autumn foxes, I sketched them on regular paper first and then showed how I transfer them to my watercolor paper. So if you would like to see how I did that, then I will link to that tutorial in this video's description. Now back to the tutorial. I am making light shapes here as guidelines to get the size, proportions, and pose that I want for the doe. I'm using an oval for the head and a larger one for the body, and connecting with sloping lines for the neck. This is obviously not a realistic deer, but a stylized version that I find a lot of fun to draw, and I hope you do too. You can experiment with the stance and angle of the legs. I'm making them long and straight, and the hoofs will be hidden in the snow. By the way, you can speed up or slow down this video in your playback settings if you need to do so. Now I give the doe a triangle-shaped tail and some teardrop-shaped ears. I give her a little pointed nose and then her big eye towards the front middle of that oval of her head. From here I will just connect these light outlines and finish out the figure, and then I will move on to the fawn. For the fawn, they have a larger head compared to their bodies, so I'm making it almost the same size as his mom's. I make him a little more than half her height. While the doe is mostly in profile, the fawn is facing more forward, so his body will be foreshortened and the oval more narrow. His front legs are farther apart, and his back legs appear shorter and end up higher than the front legs, if that makes sense. His tail is also more centered on his rump. The same teardrop-shaped ears, and a snout that's a little shorter and cuter than his mom's. Play with your proportions until you're happy with it, and make sure to keep your lines fairly light. Now for the birch trees. I start with a slightly crooked line to almost the top and follow it back down so it's thicker at the bottom. The branches are just jagged little strokes on alternating sides of the tree. Then I draw the stripes and circles, trying to make it haphazard and uneven and somewhat realistic. I do the same for the other two trees, and to balance it out, I made a smaller tree just a little farther in the distance on the fawn side, and a larger one in the foreground. Next, I sketched these snow imprints around their hooves because I forgot to do that earlier. Now for the inking. I'm using my Pigma Micron in size 3 for this first tree. These pens are great and they're waterproof, so the watercolor won't make them bleed. To try and keep this loose and easy, I'm lining the trunk and stripes in broken lines. This is just my preference because I don't want it to look too cartoonish or like a stencil. Using pen with watercolor can have a cartoony look if it's overdone. By the way, I will link to all the supplies I used for this tutorial, including my beloved black velvet watercolor brush, in the video description. Now for the deer, I outline most of them as well, but leave the lines broken here and there. Then repeat on the other two trees and gently erase the pencil lines without damaging the paper. Lastly, I decided to use my pencil to lightly draw in the snowy horizon line to protect the white of the paper. Now for the watercolors. I'm painting a pretty cloudy sky using Moonglow by Daniel Smith, just adding it to dry paper section by section. I could make an entire video about this pigment, or rather pigments, because it's made from a mix of blue, red, and some green, and it makes gorgeous textures and is a really dynamic neutral. For this sky, I thought it would be really nice, a really nice choice for this tutorial because the more you mess up, as in create blooms or uneven washes, the nicer it looks. It also looks amazing when used with salt texturing effects, which I didn't use on this demonstration, but it would have given it a pretty snowy sky look. Go ahead and leave me a comment if you would like to see a video using salt effects or other techniques and uses for Moonglow. Anyway, you can see the areas are still wet, and I am adding water drops, more pigment, and just making lots of splashy texture in the sky. Once this is dry, I start the trees. I'm painting just the center of the trunk, leaving the sides white, and I'm alternating between neutral tint and burnt sienna to tie them in with the warm fur colors I will be using on the deer. Now for the doe, I begin painting with a watery mix of gold ochre and burnt sienna, just avoiding the belly and the inside of the legs. At the bottom of the legs, I add dark sepia to the still wet burnt sienna mix, and I also add sepia to the tip of her nose. For the shadows on the white fur, I use neutral tint. The fawn is painted the same way with gold ochre fur, but I use the tip of my brush to draw little white circles on his rump and carefully paint between them. Then I add burnt sienna on the forelegs, and on the crease of the back leg and the back of the neck for a shadow. Back to the dough, I darken the shadow areas with the more concentrated burnt sienna and sepia, concentrating on the shadow areas of the back of the rump, where the legs meet the body, and the bottom of the far ear. I deepen the shaded areas on the fawn again as well, and add sepia to the bottom of the legs. For the tree stripes, I alternate between sepia and neutral tint for some variety. I use neutral tint to create the shadow areas in the snow, like at the base of the trees and the imprints of the deer hooves, and a few areas in the foreground to give it some dimension and a more snow-like look. After adding the paint, I use a clean damp brush to smooth out that edge and give it a soft transition. The next part is completely optional, and I am by no means a calligrapher, but I decided to make a simple holiday greeting at the bottom, again using light pencil marks and making sure it's centered and looks okay. Then I remove the washi tape, fill in the deer's eyes, and draw an uneven line with my micron pen all the way around, in and out of the watercolor areas for a modern loose look. And then it's done. Thank you for watching this tutorial. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel to see more art tutorials. Also click your notification bell to find out whenever a new tutorial is published, and share this video with your artist friends on social media. Happy painting, and I hope you join me for my next tutorial. Bye!